Welcome to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I am your host, Chad Hufford, and this is the podcast where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the working world. Each week, we dive into the incredible stories of honest, hardworking folks who have found financial success through grit, determination, and good old-fashioned elbow grease. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn how to turn your hard work into your own success story, you're in the right place. This is the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. All right. Well, welcome back to another great episode of the Blue Collar Millionaire Show, where we help empower everyday people to achieve extraordinary things with mindset and discipline, a little bit of encouragement and coaching. And I have a very special guest for you today, Dina Cataldo. She is a fantastic coach of high-profile professionals. In fact, she is a former criminal prosecutor, who now works with attorneys, helping them avoid burnout and helping them create a more effective practice without sacrificing their health, relationships, or their peace of mind. Dina, I know it isn't just attorneys that deal with that. There's a lot of ambitious, driven people who still struggle with those inner demons. And I know that you experienced some of those battles yourself. Tell us a little bit more about your practice and or your coaching, what you've done. You also have your own podcast, Be a Better Lawyer, but it's far beyond just attorneys that can benefit from some of the things that you talk about. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me on your show. I'm really excited to get to talk about this with your listeners because people who are ambitious, we all struggle with the same things no matter what area of our life we're focused on. I just happen to focus on lawyers who are ambitious. So I was in the same shoes as my clients have been, where I really wanted something more. And I was killing myself working towards it. And along the way, I found coaching. And when I found coaching, I discovered that there were all of these tools out there to help me manage my mind, to understand why I was feeling dread, why I was procrastinating, why I felt so upset with myself for not achieving my goals. And I realized all these tools were helping me work through those things so I could go after goals and achieve them without beating myself up and feeling really good about myself. And when I learned that, I said, I have to be a coach. I have to bring this to other people because so many of us feel called to do something more, but we haven't been given the tools to go after them without burning ourselves out.
Well, one of the things that really struck me about learning a bit about you and some of the conversations you've had is this idea of enough. And one of my clients from the oil field, and as we've talked about before, we have a lot of folks in the oil field, and it requires a level of grit and determination and ambition. So it's definitely a certain type of individual, probably not totally unlike those who pursue a career in law. You got to be gritty, you got to have thick skin. Somebody said, Chad, I have something most of my colleagues don't have. And I said, what's that? He said, enough. How do you help people figure out what enough looks like?
Yeah. And of course, when we think of enough, that's such a vague term, right? It's like, I have enough. But the person you're talking about, he figured that out for himself. He said, "No, have enough," whatever that means to him. The way I define enough is several different things. One is I am enough. And I think that that's one that so many of us, and even myself, I had to work towards that. It wasn't something that was innate. I just knew immediately, oh, I am enough. I think for so long, I actually worked from I'm not enough. And that's part of the reason why I was working so hard, and I was working late nights and trying to get the approval of bosses and trying to, make other people see how hard I was working, versus me just understanding no matter what, no matter whether I win this case, no matter whether or not I hit this target, I am enough. And that's one way I define it. And I honestly think if you have that, you're golden. I also look at the term as enough as being grateful for everything I have right now. And that could mean the amount of money I have in my bank account, because it's easy to look at your bank account and say, oh, that's just not enough. Like I'm behind on my retirement plans. Behind on this. I'm behind on that, and be hard on ourselves. But just to say, no, that is enough. I am able to build from here, but this is enough. Where I am in this moment is enough. So I think that that can be the two applications I really work from, is knowing one, I am enough, and two, everything in my life right now is enough for me. I am okay right now. That doesn't mean I don't have that ambition to build. It just means that I need to be happy with what I have right now.
I think what's so crucial about that too is our society really pushes us to focus on everything we don't have, and we lose sight of what we already possess, whether that is our own skill set, whether that is actual material possessions. But we are pressured to look at the new car, the new house, the new this. Everybody's putting their best foot forward on social media, and this idea of keeping up with the Joneses, where 30 years ago, 20 years ago, the Joneses were literally the people on your street. Now, or maybe in your law firm, or maybe in your pump station up on the North Slope. But now the Joneses are everybody in the world. Like you can literally compare your worst day to somebody else's best 10 seconds all day long, every day. And it's impossible to find enough with that perspective. I just think generosity, or not, sorry, Greg, will you edit that out? I just think the gratitude is so important and necessary, and it is an exercise. It's not just a feeling. I think it's a discipline that people need to commit to. Would you agree with that?
100%. And it was interesting what you were sharing with me just then about, that comparison and how it's so easy now for us to compare. When I used to do that a lot, I used to compare myself to other people a lot. And one, it's absolutely impossible to really compare apples to apples in any situation. So we're being so mean to ourselves, so unfair to ourselves when we do that. But the second point here is that we're really starting to play by other people's rules when we start comparing ourselves. We start making that other person we're comparing ourselves to be the rubric, the person that we're supposed to look up to. Like that, oh, that's the rule for being successful. That's what success looks like, versus turning inwards and asking ourselves, is that even something that I want?
The way I've described that, Dina, is it's like dancing to somebody else's music and wondering why you feel out of step.
Yeah.
I think it's an Aesop fable, like a fish looking at a bird and kind of bemoaning his inability to fly and all these things. But it's a completely inaccurate comparison, and I think it's so important to do. And I want to lead this into this idea of imposter syndrome, because I know you deal with that a lot, and you work with high profile, very well educated, very ambitious attorneys who from the outside, they probably look like they have everything together. But deep within inside a lot of us, I think there's that question, am I enough? Do I really have what it takes? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I went through these same things because I questioned myself so frequently, despite going to great schools, despite having, the credentials, despite, doing all of the cases and doing all of the things that you're quote unquote supposed to do. I did those things, and yet I felt like I wasn't enough, and told myself that I needed to work harder to achieve more. And more for me was just such a vague thing, more money, more respect. And when I say respect, it's what other people thought of me. And imagine trying to control what other people think of you. It's impossible. We can't do it. And it will drive us insane, and it will drive us to overwork and burnout trying to control the world's perception of us. So that was my experience, and then noting that my clients, they could be making millions of dollars, and they're scared to do anything differently in their business, to change a practice area, to tweak something, to, maybe decide, "Hey, I don't want to do a practice area anymore. It's not lighting me up." They're afraid because they've locked themselves into this idea of, no, this is what success looks like. This is how I made my money. I have to keep doing the same thing in order to stay successful.
I think you're so right. And it's almost like somebody who is heading in the wrong direction on a highway, realizing that they're getting further and further away from their goals and just saying, well, obviously I just need to go faster.
Right.
And we just keep doing more and more of the things that are not working. And we have, whether it's a void of purpose or insecurity. I think a lot of people, I'm a man of faith. I believe each of us has a God-shaped void, but however you believe, there's a void inside a lot of people that can't be met with more money, more prestige, more letters after your name. But that's what people try to fill it with. And when it doesn't work, they just add more of all those things that weren't working.
Yeah, and that was exactly what I did. That was exactly what the lawyers I work with do when they come to me, is they see, oh, this is success, and they just keep working in that direction thinking that's going to make more of it. Versus what I discovered was I needed to take a beat and I needed to start asking myself some questions like, what do I really value? And the way I'll know what I currently value is where I'm spending my time. So you might say that you really value family time, but you spend most of your time at the office and you note that you maybe never have seen your child before. Then you can know that even though your brain says, I want to value my family more, right now what you're valuing is the business. That's just an extreme example, right? And when we start to see where we're spending our money, that's also going to show us, what are we valuing? Are we valuing something that maybe gives us a quick dopamine hit or shows something off to people around us? Or are we purchasing things that are meaningful experiences? Like, it's just going to show you what you value right now. And that's just going to give you information to start asking yourself, do I like what I'm seeing? And what would I like to start changing?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but a big part of what you do, Dina, is you help other people figure out what a win looks like. Because I think a lot of people haven't defined that in their life, and we end up defining a win by somebody else's scorebook,
Yeah.
somebody else's scorecard, and we rack up points on a scorecard that isn't ours. So, what does it look like to help somebody define a win in their life?
This is what's so hilarious when you started saying that is my clients think that there are no such things as win in their lives. Like they never celebrate anything. Even if it is a win, like you can see logically, oh, you got a new client, you were able to hit this target this month, you were able to do X correctly the way you wanted it to turn out. They never acknowledge themselves for the wins. So the first thing I need to do is actually show them that they have wins and to teach them to acknowledge their wins, because they're so busy beating themselves up for what didn't go right, what didn't go perfectly, the client that they didn't get, the extra bonus that they didn't get, or the billables that they didn't log. Like, they're so focused on not enough, not enough, not enough. First, I have to show them you have enough, you have wins. So that, like, that first step of just getting their brain to see more of the wins is really the foundation.
And what you described is, I believe, a scarcity mindset. And I believe we all have that to some degree. And it can come from trauma in our background. It can come from stories that we carry with us. It can come from something that just gradually develops over time. And I think competitive, ambitious people, again, on the outside, they look confident, look like they have it all together. But man, if you could see inside the head of somebody who's really driven and competitive, the stuff that they say to themselves, the stuff I say to myself, I would never want to say to somebody else. I'll make this quick. I borrowed a buddy's car or truck last week, and I did not have it for 24 hours. And I have not dinged up a rim or scratched my car, got even a fender bender in over a decade. I don't have my buddy's car for 24 hours. I scratched it pulling out of a parking lot. And I was so mad at myself. And the things I was telling myself were horrible. But I think we do that. Ambitious people, driven people have some really negative self-talk, and it just fuels that scarcity mindset. So how to, again, we all have it. We all have scars from our past experiences. People have it around money, they have it around career, body image, all kinds of different things.
Mhm.
How do you unlock that scarcity mindset and move that towards a more openness and abundance mindset?
When it comes to the most extreme cases that I see, it is the people who are talking horribly to themselves 24/7. I mean, they are saying things I could not repeat. I would not repeat here, and they definitely would not tell their own children. So when it comes to those people who are really being hard on themselves, I give them a little subscription, a little prescription. I say, okay, this week, I just want you to be kind to yourself. And I want you to notice like when your reaction is to say all the horrible things, and then I want you to pause. And then I want you to turn it around and I want you to be compassionate to yourself. Like you're talking to your 4-year-old daughter, and your 4-year-old daughter just said all of these things to you. How would you talk to her? Because when you start changing how you speak to yourself, everything changes. Your ability to be the best you to the people around you changes. Your ability to work through problems in your business changes. You're no longer spending time beating yourself up for past failures and focusing on all of the old wrongs, right? That your brain is perceiving as wrongs. And you're saying, okay, let's move forward. But until you just start saying to yourself, oh, wait a minute. So I didn't get that client. Okay, well, that's okay. What do I want to learn from this? Like, I don't like that I didn't get this client. I want to improve from this. I want to help people. So I don't want this to be a regular thing. So let's take a look at it. And I actually have 3 questions that I use anytime there's something that they want to review, whether it's a conversation that they had with someone that didn't go the way they wanted, or a business thing that didn't go the way they wanted, or you didn't hit your metrics this month. The 3 questions are what went well? And it's important to ask yourself what went well because you got to get your brain oriented positively before you could start asking the tougher questions. It keeps it on track. The second question is what didn't go the way you wanted it to? And then the third question is, what will I do differently next time? And that will help you reorient your brain. It'll also help you take the energy that you're spending, maybe beating yourself up on something, and make it into something that will help you moving forward.
Well, and I just want to pause for just a second on this because some of our audience listening to this, again, they're oil field workers, they're firefighters, they're cops, we got a lot of our clients are part of local SWAT teams. You just said talk nicely to yourself and have some self-care. But
Yeah.
I'm guessing that when you first present that to a high profile attorney, they're
Oh, yeah.
probably giving you some pushback right away too. Because we're not trained to think like it's like, no, you're gritty, you're tough. Like you shouldn't be feeling any of these emotions. Just shut up, gut through it, and quit screwing up and quit being an idiot. And like we're not taught to think this way and to have these conversations with ourselves.
Yeah. I talked like that to myself for the first 40 years of my life.
Okay.
Like, as a criminal prosecutor, you're not going around, hugging each other, right? Like that's who we're dealing with exactly, or police officers. It's very tough. It's a very gritty profession, even though it's in the courtroom. It's the kind of profession where you're dealing with defendants, you're sitting next to murderers, between maybe you've got one defense counsel between you, right? So these are the things that when I started recognizing them, I was like, how could I tell people about this? Like, how can I possibly talk to people about this? Because it sounds insane coming from that framework that I had, which is suck it up, like just keep going, don't complain, don't whine about it. And if you grew up in a household like I did, I was told, you're crying, I will give you something to cry about if you keep crying, right? Like, so there were no such thing as feelings, which is why I think I had it so difficult for so long being ambitious and not knowing how to channel what I was feeling. And so I was feeling the dread in my body when I was working hard because of what was going on in my brain. I was afraid I was going to fail. And what was it going to mean if I fail? that I was never going to succeed, that I was never going to be enough, that I was never going to prove that I was worthy, right? And of course, that doesn't incentivize you, motivate you to do more work. It makes you want to just kind of curl up in a ball and hide under your desk. So, so for anybody listening, I get it. Like, this is something that, I didn't believe even the first time I heard it, maybe even the 20th time I heard it. And it was something I needed to practice and start to implement in order for me to see, oh, wait a minute, this isn't a bunch of baloney. This is something that is legitimate. And when I apply it, I see myself doing better and I feel better. And I honestly didn't think I had feelings for, maybe 38 years of my life. I didn't know what a feeling was.
Well, I think what you're saying is so important because I think it's human nature to focus on the negatives, to focus on what isn't going right. But people who are, again, the more driven, more competitive, more ambitious, the folks that we talk to on a daily basis probably have a tendency to focus on the negative even more. And I'm sure we both know people that can see a beautiful blue sky and pick out one storm cloud way in the distance, and that's the only thing that they see. And it's so detrimental in investing and in financial planning because a lot of people don't realize this, but the the stock market, if we just look at the S&P, has almost as many down days as up days. So about 55 to 45% up versus down. So it's almost split evenly. It's just the up days are just a little bit more and a little bit higher on average. But if you always notice the negative, it seems like the news is always bad, things are always going downhill. And to your point about your mindset, like building financial independence, building a law practice, like those are marathons. It's not a quick thing. Getting to a point where you have a work optional lifestyle, you don't have to have a job anymore. It's a long journey, and we have to have that positive mindset if we're going to stay on the path. And I just want to unpack a couple things. So you said your three questions is what went well? You're focusing on the wins, even if they're small. What didn't go as planned, and what will I do differently next time based on what I learned from this experience? Do I have
Right.
those three questions framed
Yes.
correctly? What this sounds a lot like is, so I don't know if we talked about this, Dean, in our previous conversations, but I have a biochemistry background. I have a degree in biochemistry and then went into finance. That's another
That
conversation.
totally makes sense.
But that's what we did, right? Is we look at what went as planned,
Mm,
what didn't go as planned, and what will I do differently based on what I'm learning from this? And we called it an experiment because that's what we were doing when most of the world would call everything a failure. Because
right.
most experiments did not go as planned, but we went into it with the mindset of what can I learn from this? We weren't as tied to the outcome as we were to the process.
Hmm. Yeah, 100%. Like, that's what I teach my clients, especially the ones who are coming. They come to me overwhelmed. They don't know how to manage their time, and they're afraid of the calendar because if they don't do what's on the calendar, then that means they're a failure, right? Their brain is so focused on how they're going to feel horrible if they don't do everything that they say they're going to do on the calendar. And so in any respect, even in the business, if they have targets in a business or whatever you're looking at for a goal, if you're making it mean anything about you, whether you hit the goal or not, you're going to have a really tough time of it. You're going to have a
Mm.
really tough time, going through those days when you don't feel motivated to get up in the morning. You're going to have a really tough time, hearing no and then going on to the next call or doing the next thing that you need to do in your business. It's going to feel like a grind. But if you're not attaching that meaning to whether or not you hit your target, then everything becomes easier if you're unattached. And I call it an experiment in the calendar. When I'm talking about the calendar, I say, look, it's just an experiment. We're just going to do some things and you're going to see how they work. And then we're going to do the evaluation and then you're going to do it again. And then you're going to do it again and again. And you're going to start learning that it has nothing to do with you, whether or not you hit a target, whether or not you've completed what you said you would do. It just has to do with how you start organizing the way you plan your day, right? It's a very like back off. It's just an experiment, and it becomes so much easier when they can get into that mindset.
And what I hear you saying is the focus is on the inputs and the process more than the outcome. And this the idea that we talk about all the time in financial planning is, yeah, I mean, you're going to have up days, you have down days, you'll have times when life throws curveballs at you, and maybe you can't hit those targets. You can't hit the objectives you put out for yourself. And rather than beating yourself up for missing those targets, you just have to commit to the process, commit to the inputs. Eventually, the outcomes take care of themselves. And I don't think it matters whether you are an attorney trying to build a practice, whether you are a law enforcement officer, whether you're one of our blue collar millionaires, retired or not retired. It's giving yourself the freedom to have those setbacks without blowing up the plan. Is that fair?
Yeah, and managing your emotions. I mean, one of the things that you brought up was when the news comes on and it says it's been like the worst day in the history of, the stock market today, right? And managing the emotions that inevitably will come up, right? And managing, okay, I'm going to feel this urge to maybe take all my money out of the stock market. I'm going to feel this urge to do something else with my money that's not as wise, that I haven't actually stopped and talked to my financial planner about. And that reaction comes from the subconscious mind is always going to give us these reactions, right? It's a normal process. One of the things that we crave, and in fact one of the things that's our primary directive of our subconscious, is survival. And so when we have that kind of a belief that our survival is threatened, we're going to have a reaction. But if we can learn to manage our mindset around that reaction, and instead of taking action when we feel that urge to do something from fear or anxiety or even frustration or anger, we can pause for just a second and ask ourselves, is this really what I want to do?
Hmm.
But we have to give ourselves that beat to just pause and get curious and think about it. And that beat can be enough to say, oh, yeah, Chad said to hold on. And just the inputs that I'm putting in, that consistency over time, I'm going to see a long-term benefit. This is normal. And this is just something that I need to manage myself around.
I love that, Dina. It's the fear, the emotion, or whatever that is you're experiencing is normal, but how we respond is important. We can't beat ourselves up for feeling that emotion, but how we react to it, or maybe choose not to react, that's where the importance is. And so much of what you talk about has way more than just financial impact, way more than just career impact. And these are mindsets that will help somebody flourish in multiple areas of their life. And it really is a mindset thing. And it's really hard to act right if you're not thinking right. So where can people stay in touch with you? Where can they learn more about what you do and how you're not just helping attorneys find more freedom in their life, but anybody?
Yeah.
Where can
So
they go to find you?
So my podcast is called Be a Better Lawyer, but I actually have reviews that say, I'm not even a lawyer, but I love this podcast. I love listening to it. So that will give you applications to any area of your life to apply mindset. So if they anywhere they can listen to this podcast, on Apple, Spotify, it's on YouTube. You can also go to dinacataldo.com. And I'm also on Instagram, dina.cataldo. And I'm on LinkedIn too, if you're on LinkedIn and want to connect with me.
Sounds fantastic. We'll put those in the show notes. So Dina Cataldo, everybody, unlocking your mindset to have a more abundant future. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your wisdom. And I know it's been encouragement to me, and I'm sure our listeners as well.
Thanks for having me, Chad. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. And just want to remind all our listeners, stay on the straight and narrow. I know it's a difficult journey, but folks like Dina and I were here to encourage you, to keep you pushing along, and give yourself some grace today. Goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. We hope this episode has been inspiring and beneficial to you. If you want help on your journey to financial freedom, reach out to us at veritasalaska.com. We'd love to sit down over a cup of coffee with you, either here in our office or virtually, and get to know you and your needs. And though this podcast is free of charge, we do ask that you please do us 2 quick favors. If you enjoyed the episode, give our pod a great rating on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you use, and also give us a follow on Instagram. We hope you have a wonderful day filled with gratitude and intentionality. God bless.
The information expressed is for general information only and is not intended to provide specific investment advice or recommendations for any individual. It is suggested that you consult your financial professional, attorney, or tax advisor with regard to your individual situation. Hypothetical investment results are for illustrative purposes only and should not be deemed a representation of future results.